Hi there, this is Ranjit, and in this video we'll be doing the full review for this Oppo Reno 10X Zoom. And I've been actually using this one for over a week now, and quite a few of you have asked me what do I feel about the same. And this actually comes in two variants, guys, and remember this is the 10X Zoom, not the regular Reno. And this also comes in two variants. One comes with 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. That's for about 40,000. This sells in Flipkart. I'll leave the link in the description. And there's also another variant that comes with 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. That's priced at about 50,000. I frankly feel the 40,000 one is the most price effective in my frank opinion. But before we jump between the pros and cons, what do I feel about this device? Let's talk about the specs. As you can see, it's powered by the Snapdragon 855 SoC, and it comes with a 6.6-inch Super AMOLED screen. And other specs are on the screen, and the biggest thing about this 10X is that zoom capabilities that it has. We'll have a look at all that, but here are the specs on the screen for your reference. So first, let's talk about the pros. What do I feel about this device? And the first thing that you look at this one is the screen, and it's an AMOLED screen that you're getting. It's a 6.6-inch screen because it doesn't have any notch or anything. So yes, though it's 6.6-inch, it does not feel that big, but it's slightly heavy. But I got used to the weight of this device after about 3-4 days, and it's a good quality AMOLED screen that you're having. Again, because it's an AMOLED screen, again, if you notice, the viewing angles are good, the blacks are jet black, so I didn't have a problem with the AMOLED screen. And also, if you keep it on auto brightness, that's how I was using it, I did not have a lot of problems. And underneath, it runs with ColorOS 6 with Android Pie, that is Android 10, so that's not a problem. So you're getting, as of now, the latest version of Android. If you go to about the device, and this is typical ColorOS, if you notice, and as you can see, it's running on the ColorOS version 6, and the Android version is 9, that is Android Pie. And now, as this Reno is in the Android beta program, Oppo officials say that we'll also be getting the next version of Android, that is the next Android, very quickly on this. It's typical ColorOS. We do have that app tray on this, and if you notice, in terms of UI operations, I never notice any lagginess or anything with this device because it's running on the Snapdragon 855 SoC, and as you can see, it's really good. And even in terms of RAM management, the RAM management has been done very well on this device. Apps stay in memory, and some of the apps like Truecaller, etc., also stay in memory. So again, in terms of RAM management also, I did not have a problem. And again, as it's running on the Snapdragon 855, general performance was not an issue. Now, another thing that I like about this device is that if you look from the back, it actually looks very stylish. The cameras, though they are actually very powerful cameras, don't come out and jut out. It's nicely done, and at least in this color, they call this the emerald green. This looks really nice. If you just tilt it a little bit like this, you get a slight gradient effect, and in terms of looks, I would say it looks really nice. And yes, it has that shark fin antenna if you use the front facing camera. I'll talk about the camera later on. So in terms of looks, I would say it does actually a pretty good job. Now, moving to another small thing is that in terms of haptic feedback, I felt that the haptic feedback done on this one was very well done. This is actually very close to the OnePlus 7 Pro and some of the higher end Android phones that I've done. This is something that is not a small thing, but does make quite a bit of difference. So the haptic feedback implementation has been done very well on this one, and even when you use the keyboard or generally use the phone, it gives you very good haptic feedback. Now, moving to another thing is that this one has stereo speakers, and I'm happy to say that the stereo speakers implementation is done very well on this device.
It obviously has a screen, so you can watch.
So this is my own video, and if you notice, the sound comes from here and even from the earpiece.
It is small, it looks really big.
So nevertheless, I would say the sound output that you're getting from this one is actually really good, and I didn't have to always keep it on the max volume. Even at 80% volume, it was loud enough. So the stereo implementation has been done very well, but it does not have the 3.5mm headphone jack. Now, moving to the fingerprint scanner, it has an in-display fingerprint scanner, as you can see over here, and it is very, very responsive, so you don't have to worry about this one. As you can see, it works every time. So in-display fingerprint scanner is a good one, and it's a fast in-display fingerprint scanner that is used on this. Now moving to another thing is that the battery on this on paper is just 4065 milliamp hour battery, but I have to say the battery life on this phone is actually really good. I had used this with dual SIM almost all the time, and now I have just put my Airtel SIM, and the good thing is that with Airtel also I'm getting VoLTE connection, and the battery life is actually really good. I would say in terms of battery life, it can actually go about 1.5 days of usage with my typical usage. So that way the battery life is very good. But again, as this is ColorOS, as you see, we don't get detailed battery stats and the SOT values, but nevertheless I would say the battery life has been good. It was giving me almost about 1.5 days of battery life per charge, and if you're sort of even a heavy user, I would say even with 2 SIMs it'll easily last for a typical working day. For example, if you leave your house at about 8 o'clock in the morning, even if you come back at about 10:30 or 11 o'clock, it'll still have about 20-25% of battery life. So battery life has been implemented well, I would say. And guys, to be fair, I'm actually using it with this always on screen mode. So if you disable this, maybe you'll eke out a slightly better battery life. Now, as I've mentioned, it does have dual VoLTE. I did not have a problem. I tested this with Airtel and Jio. Right now, it's my Airtel SIM is in there, and as you can still see, we have the VoLTE signal. So we are getting VoLTE signal even on Airtel, and obviously with Jio it works. And also in terms of network reception, I would say the network reception is slightly above average. In my studio other room, again it's a soundproof room, and the signal level is generally low with Airtel, but I was able to take some calls in that room. Yes, it was getting slightly muffled at times. This is very low signal. Many of the phones just get cut off, but with this one I was able to take some calls. So I would say the network reception is slightly above average, and with Jio it was an excellent. Also, now moving to another important thing is that as this is a smartphone, the earpiece quality is really good. The other parties sounded very crystal clear, so the earpiece is implemented very well. And in fact, the earpiece is here in this area. I was a little bit skeptical about the earpiece, but the earpiece is very good, and the call quality was good. I also took some calls via the speakerphone and did not have any problems with that. Now moving to RAM management, I have told you it is actually really good. No issues within the UI. I did not notice any lagginess, or even RAM management surprisingly has been done very well with this one, though it's having that custom ColorOS skin on it. I also did some gaming. I did not do a lot of gaming. I just played PUBG on this, and PUBG played fine without any issues. I did not have any lagginess or anything with the same. Now moving to the biggest thing about this phone is the camera on this one. It has that triple camera setup, and actually the main camera is a 48 megapixel camera with the f1.7 lens. Then we also have the special 13 megapixel zoom camera. That's the big thing about this one, and it can go up to 6x and even 10x zoom. And lastly, we also have the 8 megapixel wide angle. It actually has a periscope for that mega zoom, so that's the special thing about this one. And this one also has laser autofocusing, so for focusing it is actually pretty fast. And the front facing camera is this shark fin, they call it, pop camera, and this is having a 16 megapixel front facing camera. And here are some of the sample shots that I have taken with this, and as you can see, the camera performance, it's like typical Oppo phones. The camera performance is actually really good. Color reproduction is good, and also when you use the different modes of that, it works very well. And to be frank guys, yes, it has that 6x and 10x zoom, and it works really well. But in my last week of usage, I didn't have a need to actually use the 6x or 10x zoom. Maybe if you're on a holiday or something, you might use it. But to just give you an idea, here are some of the samples that were taken in the normal mode, and then I used the zoom mode 6x and 10x. And yes, as you can see, you can go really close to the subject if you use those 6x and 10x mode. But in real life, I hardly used it. I was mostly using it in the wide angle lens or in the regular mode with the portrait mode. And in those scenarios, it performed very well. Now moving to the front facing camera, it's a 16 megapixel front facing camera, and here also, as you can see, the front facing camera performance is actually really good. I did not have a problem with the front facing camera. So in terms of camera, I would say the camera performance is really good. And yes, this is one of those rare phones that has that 6x and 10x zoom capabilities, which can be actually useful if you're going on a holiday or something. But in a normal day-to-day usage, I frankly did not use it that much. But nevertheless, the camera performance is good. Now let's move to the cons and some of the things that I did not like with this smartphone. Again, like many of the other smartphones, this does not have a physical LED notification light, but in the settings you can enable this always on display. And as you can see, the always on display is there. It's showing me the time and the fingerprint scanner is here. It works. But one thing that I've noticed is that with this always on display, it does not show you all the notifications on this one. For example, for missed calls, yes, it shows, but for many other notifications, like let's say you're getting email and some, those icons simply do not come. So I feel though the always on display is there, but Oppo is simply not taking advantage of this one. And I just hope in the future update they tweak this, because it simply does not make sense. Right now it's just showing me the time and just missed calls notification come, but other notification icons simply do not come on this one. It has this built-in browser. I'm not using it, I'm using the Chrome browser, but what I have noticed is that the built-in browser sends unnecessary notifications, though you can actually disable it. This is ColorOS 6, and if you notice, you have this notification center over here, and if I click on this, it's showing me the unnecessary notification. And notice how many notifications you're getting from that browser. You can hide it. I have hidden it, but again, it comes over here. And some of you have asked me about notifications on this ColorOS. With earlier versions of the ColorOS, you had to swipe out each one of them, but fortunately with this ColorOS 6, you have this X, so you can swipe all of them. These are minor quibbles that I have noticed, but yeah, it is there. Now coming to the build quality generally is actually really good. It looks very premium, as I've told you. But what I've noticed is that in terms of build quality, the volume buttons actually wobble quite a bit, and that is also the same case even with this power button. I don't know if it's just on my unit, but this is something that I have noticed. It's not a deal breaker, guys, but there is slight wobble in the volume button and slight wobble on the power on off button. That is something that I have noticed. I also missed the fact that this one does not have the 3.5mm headphone jack. I know many of the phones are skipping that, but I still miss that. Some of the other quibbles that we have with ColorOS, like no detailed battery stats and stuff, those are the things that still annoy me. And one bug that I have noticed with this device is that, yes, you can take some great slow motion videos with this one, and I have actually taken quite a bit of slow motion videos. For example, this was for this Orient bladeless fan, and I took some slow motion videos with this one. And as you can see, it is showing beautifully over here in a very cinematic way. But there is some problem with the slow motion video, because when I export these videos on my computer, I'm simply not able to play it back. I even tried VLC and stuff, but I hope they fix this bug with the OTA update. And I still do not like the fact that in the offline stores, I don't know if the situation has changed now, but this was the case when it was launched about 2 months ago. In the offline stores, they are only selling the higher end variant that sells for about 50,000 rupees, not the value oriented option that is selling for 40,000. That is only sold via Flipkart. So guys, this was my review of this Oppo Reno 10X Zoom. Certainly a very good smartphone. In terms of performance, I did not have a problem, and also it's very stylish to look at it. And in general performance, again, I did not have a problem because it's having the Snapdragon 855 SoC. And yes, you do have that 6x and 10x zoom. If you really need that, you have that. But yeah, some of the cons that I have mentioned do apply, that are mostly to regarding ColorOS 6. Anyways, guys, that was my review of this Oppo Reno 10X Zoom. If you guys are still not subscribed to my YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button. This is Ranjit, and I hope to see you in my next video. Take care, guys.